What did I say? What did I say yesterday? That if I was going to do the whole thing all over again, and I was going to stay up late, and I was going to watch the Phillies, and I was going to get emotionally invested, I was going to get into the game, and then they were going to blow it again. What did I say 24 hours ago from this exact moment? Our guys even clipped it, sent it out into the atmosphere there on the internet, and then it came into fruition again with the Phillies blowing another game against one of the worst teams in all of baseball. Phillies, week and a half ago, competing for first place in the National League East. And now 3.5 games out of first place as the Braves continue to surge and the Phillies continue to falter. And last night, this is at the point we're at right now, okay? Phillies, by the way, last night, 0-for-5 with runners in scoring position. Again, they had their chances to put up runs. This time, more so than 2 days ago when they only had 3 hits in the ball game. This time, they had more opportunities. 0-for-5 with runners in scoring position. Somehow, they actually got a run after Odubel Herrera led off a game with a triple. Amazing. But 0-for-5 with runners in scoring position. We're at a point right now, and I don't say this often because there's a fine line between the high school sports you played, the movies you watched, and real life big league baseball. Somebody needs to flip over a damn table. Somebody needs to get in somebody's face. You know what I'll even settle for? I'll settle for the passive-aggressive closed-door meeting where Joe Girardi doesn't go out and address the media right away. Where back in the days of Charlie Manuel, you'd close those damn doors. You know what? You'd have it out in the clubhouse. You'd say, all right, what are we doing? How do we fix this? Because right now, I don't see anybody pulling this team out of it. Bryce Harper goes through about a month and a half where he's putting himself in the MVP race for the National League. He can't say anything right now because he doesn't feel like it's his team yet. At least that's what it seems. JT Realmuto, same type of thing. I look at a guy like Rhys Hoskins. And Rhys Hoskins, when we've had writers on, like Matt Breen, for instance, he's highlighted for us how much these guys really look to Rhys Hoskins as being the leader of this team. And I know that Rhys isn't the most clutch guy in the world with runners in scoring position, but he's been your best hitter all season long, your most consistent power hitter all season long, up until recently when Bryce Harper really started to turn it on. With him out of the lineup, with Rhys Hoskins out of the lineup, without that leadership there, he's still in the clubhouse, I get it, but without that leadership in the lineup, it doesn't have the same effect. And I'm not saying that's why this is falling apart. It's falling apart for many reasons. But somebody, if it's not going to be Rhys because he's not playing, somebody needs to step up and flip over a damn table, get in somebody's face, close the meeting, close the doors of the clubhouse, and find a way to get this right. Because what we're watching right now is embarrassing. You go up against the Dodgers. I didn't expect to win 2 out of 3. I didn't expect to win that series against the Dodgers. I told you beforehand. I told you while it was going on, I expected 1 win. You go up against the Reds. You play down to the Reds. You lose 2 or 3 to the Reds. Now you play way down to the point where you got to use a damn steam shovel to dig a hole for yourself, to go even lower, to lower yourself to the expectation to play against a team like the Arizona Diamondbacks. Second to worst pitching in all of baseball. Second worst ERA. Second worst whip. And you struggle scoring runs against this team with the bats in this lineup? I don't know what Joe Girardi is supposed to do here. I said when the Phillies were in first place, I said that it's up to Joe Girardi to make sure they avoid that mid-August collapse that we have seen under every manager, even including the days of Charlie Manuel towards the latter stages of his years here in Philadelphia, where the team just couldn't keep it together down the stretch. And you saw it with Pete. You saw it with Ryan Sandberg. You saw it with Pete McCann. You saw it with Gabe Kapler. And we saw it last year with Joe Girardi. Are we seeing it again? I charged Joe Girardi 2 weeks ago. It's up to you to make sure this team keeps winning. Find a way to keep it going. Find a way to make sure they don't have that end-of-the-year collapse that we have seen time and time again, what it seems like for the past decade. Find a way to avoid it. This is not avoiding it. This is doing that exact same thing. It's putting it on repeat so we get to watch it all over again. I don't think that's what we signed up for a couple of weeks ago. I don't think that's what we signed up for even before the season started. I mean, I know a lot of people are just looking at this Phillies here going, you know what, maybe they'll contend. Maybe they'll compete for a wild card. That'd be nice. Well, now it's changed. I mean, Aaron Nola needs to be more consistent. We know that. All three of your top pitchers need to be more consistent. Zach Wheeler, we're hoping he bounces back from what was not his best start, even a little bit his last time out. He'll get the ball for the Phillies today. And I say this a lot. I hope he's not the stopper. The Phillies don't need a stopper right now. The Phillies need a starter. They need a guy to light the fire, to start that fire, and make sure they keep it going for the rest of the season. Who's going to be the guy? Are they really going to wait till Rhys Hoskins is off the injured list and he's back in the lineup and they'll say, oh, okay, our leader's back and now we can start playing ball again? Is that what it's going to take? Because even that seems like it's going to be far, far down the road, especially with the way the Atlanta Braves are playing right now. Freddie Freeman hits for the damn cycle last night for the second time in his career. I believe he's the only Brave to ever do that in his career. Meanwhile, the Phillies, they're giving up hits to pitchers now. And Ranger Suarez, you know what? God love him. But I was afraid of this. So many times, you want to stretch a guy out. You want to make sure that he can pitch 65, 75, 85, 100 pitches. You want to get him from that 30-pitch mark to that 90-pitch mark. You want to make sure you can stretch those guys out. But the opposite of the side effect of that is while you're doing that, you're also figuring out how many times a guy can go through a lineup. And it seemed like last night with Ranger Suarez, one was the answer to that question. One time through a lineup, he can go before he starts looking like he's leaking oil, before he starts giving up hits to the pitcher, before he starts to get his time, before the other team starts to get his timing down. That's the side effect of stretching out a guy. You're also figuring out how deep into a lineup, how many times through a rotation, how many times through a lineup he can go as a pitcher, as a starting pitcher. And Ranger Suarez, it seems maybe one. It'll be nice. Maybe 1.5. Maybe 1.5. But there was no pulling the Phillies out of that rut last night. And Odubel Herrera really tried. He got a triple. He got a home run late in the game to no avail because the Phillies just couldn't keep it going. Joe Girardi did address the media after the game. There was no closed-door meeting after the game. The pitcher, his name's escaping me right now, was called for a banned substance on his glove and was taken out of the game. The glove is now going to get checked out by Major League Baseball. Pitcher said he wasn't cheating. He had no foreign substance. Everything's fine. So that's getting checked out. Joe Girardi apparently unaware of it after the game. I didn't hear Joe talk about it. I only read Bob Nightingale of the USA Today tweeted out that Joe Girardi was unaware of any banned substance being pulled or found in the opposing pitcher's mitt. He was unaware. Not a good look, Joe. Not a good look. Here's Joe Girardi postgame talking about just looking for a way to stop the bleeding.
You got to find a way, you got to find a way to grind this out and turn it around tomorrow. We've had 7 hits in the 2 days here. You get 2 hits out of Odubel and you get 1 out of Gene tonight. And we just got to find a way to get it corrected.
Fine. All right. How did you pull yourself out of it before? The Phillies have gone through these ruts before they rattled off a nice couple of weeks there to propel themselves into first place. They found themselves in ruts. Is the only answer to this, aside from Rhys Hoskins coming back, Alec Boehm figuring out how to hit again, Alec Boehm figuring out how to field again, getting your starting pitchers to find some kind of a groove, is the only way out of this just playing in the NL East? Because that seems to be the only remedy for any of this. How soon can they get back to playing in the NL East for them to actually start stacking wins again? George Girardi also talked about how they had to put in some more work.
It comes down to your work and just grinding out at bats. Sometimes taking some walks, sometimes catching a little break, a little bloop here. Not trying to do too much, taking singles, put singles together, hit some doubles in the gap. Don't try to hit home runs because that's not going to help you, especially in this ballpark as big as it's playing. You just got to string things together.
I would love for them to be able to put some wins together right now. They just look they look like a team that needs to be shaken up. And I can't remember Joe Girardi in his 2 seasons here, shaking things up, really making sure that he's trying to get emotion out of these players. He's trying to get a charge out of these guys. And Joe Girardi's a baseball man. He was a catcher. He should know how to handle different personalities with all the pitching staffs that he had to deal with in Chicago and New York and all that. And it was a longtime manager, managed with the Marlins before he was at the Yankees. We all know the history of Joe Girardi. At what point will he push the right buttons? Because that's why Joe Girardi's here. He's supposed to be able to find the right buttons to push. All the other guys, they were supposed to be able to do that. They weren't able to do that. Joe Girardi gets brought in. He relieves Gabe Kapler of his duties, who's now doing a great job in San Francisco. And that's not revisionist history. It wasn't a good match here. The players didn't like him here. It was time to move on. He's moving on. Good for Gabe Kapler. Nothing but success for Gabe. But what I wish for him. But Joe Girardi's the guy that was hired to be the guy to push the right buttons down the stretch. And that doesn't just mean calling for the right bullpen arm out of the bullpen. That means knowing how to mentally prepare your team for a challenge that's in front of them. And the Arizona Diamondbacks shouldn't be a 2 out of 3 challenge for the Phillies. They sure as hell better not be a 3 out of 3 challenge for the Philadelphia Phillies. They should be a team that's swept by a team like the Phillies, that's in pursuit of first place and winning their division, going at least leading their division going into September. This doesn't look like a team that's mentally prepared. And actually, listen to this again from Joe Girardi. Listen to this again. Talking about grinding out at bats against the second worst pitching team in all of baseball.
It comes down to your work and just grinding out at bats. Sometimes taking some walks, sometimes catching a little break, a little bloop here. Not trying to do too much, taking.
These are things we have to remind this ball club in mid-August. Excuse me, late August. Where's that conversation before the game? One more from Joe post-game. Listen to that.
If you don't play well, teams can make up ground very quickly on you. And we have not played well the last 3 series. We lost the series to the Dodgers. We lost the series to the Reds. And now we've lost the series to the Diamondbacks. But it can all start over tomorrow. That's the message. We got to turn it around tomorrow. You can't wait any longer. We got to find a way to put some runs on the board. We got our, wheels on the mound tomorrow, and you got to find a way to get him some runs.
Let's discover those runs as fast as humanly possible. But where's those before the game? Strategy, mindset, putting the proverbial quarter in. Doesn't get any easier. Yeah, these are supposed to be the gimme games, the 3-game series against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Then you got the Padres. Then you got 2 against Tampa. And then, oh, my God, you host the Arizona Diamondbacks for 4 games. So you're not back in the NL East until August 30th, where you have 3 at Washington, at Miami, and then you have 3 at Milwaukee. So you got 11 days before you're back in the NL. How long are we going to let this bleeding go, Joe? I know you can always look at the players, and I always blame players before I blame a manager. But literally the reason Joe Girardi was hired was to avoid this kind of collapse again towards the end of the year. And it looks like the Phillies are going through it again. We got a poll question out there right now as part of our social media check-in with Steak and Maine at steakandmaine.com. So make sure you check that out right now in terms of whether or not the Phillies will bounce back from this or whether or not the goose is cooked. By the way, good morning. My name is Marc. I'm your host for this Farzy show. We're at the Steven Singer Studios. Hope you guys are just having a beautiful morning. Just a lovely, lovely morning. So what are you watching on Netflix? Anything good? Anyway, I do want to tell you, Mike Kaye joins us coming up in just a minute to talk about all things Eagles. Eagles and Patriots kickoff tonight in their second preseason game. I'm hoping we see a good amount of Jalen Hurts. I am crossing my fingers. I don't think it happens, but I'm crossing my fingers we see Devontae Smith. I'd love to see Devontae Smith. Throw him in the mix here with Kes Watkins. Throw him in the mix here with Jalen Reagor. Little Travis Fulgham. Greg Ward's competing for a roster spot here. So is J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. Mike Kaye will shine light on all this. John Hightower is another name that's being out there. And some tough news for the Eagles as well. Tyree Jackson, the QB to tight end convert, has a back injury. Looks like he is going to be red-shirted, proverbial red-shirted this year for the Eagles. So they'll at least hold on to him. He was having a great camp. I'll get into the conversation with Mike when it comes to whether or not Jackson had any influence on Zach Ertz in terms of they felt comfortable enough with Jackson coming up through the ranks that they would go into the season with Jackson and Goddard as their tight ends and would have felt more comfortable in either releasing or trading Zach Ertz for whatever they would be able to get in return for him. So we'll get into that with Mike Kaye coming up in just a second. Mike does a great job. If you're not following Mike on social media, make sure you're doing that right now for all things Eagles. Let me tell you about my good friend Steven Singer, Steven Singer Jewelers. You know, it might make me feel good. Buying a nice piece of jewelry. Where will I go for that? Steven Singer Jewelers. Go to IHateStevenSinger.com to peruse all the great inventory that Steven Singer has to offer. Go ahead and use the appointment scheduler. Make yourself an appointment. Go on into Steven Singer Jewelers, the other corner of 8th and Walnut, right in Philadelphia. And a real jewelry expert will walk you through everything. Looking to get engaged? Do you want to do it quickly? Ready for Love diamond engagement rings, literally at the ready. Big old box. They flip that open. What do they got? They got about 15, 20 rings in there for you to look at. Just in that little box. How easy is that? You want to go a little bit more in depth? Have a real jewelry expert walk you through the entire process, and they will be glad to do so. Beautiful diamond engagement ring, beautiful pieces of jewelry, earrings, necklaces, tennis bracelets. They got the whole thing at Steven Singer Jewelers. So do what I do. Trust my friend Steven Singer, because every single day you know what you're going to get. Not some discount, not some promo code, not some sale that you just missed. Every single day, you're going to get the perfect price. You don't have to worry about whether or not the person next to you is paying less than you are. If they're getting some kind of deal because they negotiated better, you don't got to worry about that at Steven Singer Jewelers, because every single day it's at the perfect price. IHateStevenSinger.com. Always fast and free shipping at IHateStevenSinger.com. The other corner of 8th and Walnut. Make sure you tell them Marc Farzy sent you. Without further ado, let's get into some conversation. Oh, it is going to be a fun-filled morning rush today, by the way. We got plenty of good stuff to get to, including Union football. That's right, Union soccer. We're going to get into that. And also the best show in baseball from last night. We'll get into that as well. Without further ado, let's talk to my good friend from NJ.com, Mike Kaye, as he joins us on the Rothman Orthopaedics guest line. Joining us on the Rothman Orthopaedics guest line from NJ.com, the No Huddle podcast. You can read him. You can listen to him. He's one of the best guys in the business for doing this. Our man, Mike Kaye. What's going on there, Mike?
Nothing. Not a whole lot. Trying to take in the hours and minutes before preseason game number 2.
Oh, I'm sure. Were you down there at NovaCare Complex for their most recent practice?
Yeah, I haven't missed a beat. It's been an interesting joint practice session with the Patriots. I covered the Eagles joint practices with the Ravens in 2019. I covered a bunch of them with the Jaguars. You can typically tell who's the better team towards the end of the first practice. And if I were a betting man, I'd say the Eagles record is at least 2 wins higher than the Patriots. The Patriots do not look like a good roster whatsoever.
Wow, that is a little of the shocking side. Can you tell us who do you think is in the lead for their starting quarterback position? Do you think it's going to be Cam Newton, or will they go with the young gun and Mac Jones?
I was more impressed by Mac Jones, but I think they're going to go with Cam Newton at least the first couple of games. He's a guy that's running almost exclusively with the first team, at least while they've been here, except when Kayvon Wallace is jawing at him and he has to be with the second team so that he can show him up. But look, Newton is what he is. He's not a deep ball passer anymore. As Kayvon Wallace said, he was the king of checkdowns during at least the second practice. He took some more shots in the first practice, but overall, I just was not impressed by him at all. And in fact, I would rather have the short-term situation the Eagles have than either one of the quarterbacks in New England.
Oh, wow. All right. Hey, that's great news. So
2 practices, take it for what it's worth, but I was not impressed with Mac Jones or Cam Newton, even by the standards of Jalen Hurts being up and down for the last 3 weeks.
Oh, yeah, that's just what I was going to roll into then. Was that more of just how bad Cam Newton has been or Mac Jones has been, or how good a guy like Jalen Hurts has been?
Well, I think Jalen's come on as of late. I think he benefits from team drills. He's not really an individual. He's what you would call a gamer. He's not a guy who can throw to air very well. He's not a guy who's going to throw well to one-on-one individual coverage drills, but when there are extra bodies there and the target's a little bit larger and the target area is a little bit larger, he's a guy who tends to make big plays. He's done very well as a deep ball passer. I've been very impressed by the way he's targeted tight ends. That was a major concern by people around the team and internally coming into this offseason about how well he would mesh with a 2 tight end set that is very prevalent for the Eagles. As much as this team wants to be an 11 personnel team, their personnel kind of forces them to be a 12 personnel team, especially with Zach Ertz still here.
As far as the guys that Jalen Hurts has been throwing to, a couple of guys might be on the bubble that some people might not have expected. JJ, I think a Whiteside, certainly people expected. Greg Ward was a guy that became a fan favorite over the last couple of years here. Do you think it's going to come down to a choice between the two with how well a guy like Jalen Reagor's practicing, Devontae Smith already being here, and maybe looking to veterans elsewhere? Do you think a guy like Greg Ward and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside are really being threatened here?
Well, I think before you can look at the bubble, you got to look at the 4 guys who are basically guaranteed to be here. It's going to be Quez Watkins, Jalen Reagor, Devontae Smith, and probably Travis Fulgham. And then you look at this trio of competing guys for the final 1 or 2 spots, and that's John Hightower and the 2 guys you just mentioned, Greg Ward and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. I think Greg Ward's the most comfortable of those 3 guys, and I would take Arcega-Whiteside over Hightower. Hightower, before he got injured, was having a pretty up and down camp. Got benched last year. He doesn't really play a ton of special teams as much as they're trying to force him out there to be a kick returner. He's about like the 4th or 5th guy in line. And again, he missed roughly a week and a half with a groin injury, and he missed a preseason game. So he's really going to have to bounce back in these next 2 preseason games. He just came back to team drills on Tuesday. And Arcega-Whiteside's having a nice camp. I mean, at this point, you'd like to say that he's having more than a nice camp when he's a 2nd-round pick. And the scrutiny is certainly deserved, but I think he's doing just enough to make this roster, as much as that's probably going to annoy the fan base. Greg Ward, if Greg Ward does get bounced off the roster, it won't be for a lack of effort. It'll be for a lack of versatility. He's essentially just a slot receiver. And this team really wants to be as versatile as possible. Whereas Watkins can play on the slot and the outside. Jalen Reagor can play all 3 positions. Travis Fulgham can play all 3 positions. Arcega-Whiteside, they've used him in the slot quite a bit. We know he can somewhat play outside. Devontae Smith can play everywhere. So it's just kind of a matter of where does he fit in the versatility pie, and is there going to be a role for him? Because frankly, Quez Watkins and Jalen Reagor are going to play a lot in the slot this year. And if that's the case, do you need a guy who is really just a safe punt returner and a leader, or the most experienced guy in a room with a bunch of guys that have 1, 2, and 3 years of experience?
Do you think Devontae Smith gets some playing time against the Patriots this week?
If he does, I think it'll be limited to like a series, kind of like how the defense was limited last week. I do think he needs to get used to the speed of the game, but it's a situation where if you're going to preserve Miles Sanders, I feel like you should also preserve somebody like Devontae Smith, who's coming off an injury that cost him roughly a week and a half. So from that perspective, if he gets a series, it's understandable, but I wouldn't use him more than that. I think the starters in general will see about 3 to 4 series in this game.
Okay, so just slightly more than what you saw in week 1. I do want to ask you about this because my heart goes out to this guy, and I saw you write the story. It's the most recent story you have up on NJ.com right now, talking about Tyree Jackson was really making headway as a quarterback to tight end convert, and then all of a sudden gets this back injury. You're assuming, or you're at least thinking, that he is going to get, red-shirted this year?
Yeah, I mean, it looks that way. And if the Eagles want to avoid getting vultured on the waiver wire, they're going to have to hold off until final cuts. So he's going to have to be part of their 53-man roster so they can place him immediately on IR and not have to risk him to the waiver wire. It is a shame. I did this huge story on him last week before the preseason game about, his journey from a QB to tight end. And he had a lot of people rooting for him. He had a lot of great support in his corner. He worked very hard this offseason. Real, rags to riches story, and it's a shame. But the fact of the matter is the Eagles liked what they saw from him. I don't think they would have rushed to release this information if they didn't think he was going to be around for a while. Everybody talks about the phantom red shirt, kind of whoopsie-daisy injury. I don't think they would have rushed to put him out in that injury spotlight had this been kind of phony. So, he'll get an extra year to kind of learn the position from the mental side of the game. He can definitely work on his blocking. But it does seem like he's going to be around for a bit. And with Zach Ertz being in the final year of his career and potentially trade bait, his opportunities in the future will be kind of endless.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Did his play and the level of play that he was at, would that have affected the way Zach Ertz would have been dealt with maybe over the next couple of weeks?
I don't think so. He was still kind of learning what he was doing as a blocker. You could see on that first Nick Mullins interception, he kind of wasn't aware of his spacing, or at least had a miscommunication there. He was still a work in progress, but he was playing so well that he was playing over guys who have actual experience at the tight end position. So that tells you what they thought of him, at least as far as his development. And I'll tell you this, Joe Flacco and Nick Mullins loved throwing to him. He was a constant target. So I think next year we're going to be looking at this guy as a guy that should run away with any number 2 tight end competition that he faces.
Any off the beaten path guys that are really jumping out to you so far at camp?
I mean, look, I think guys like Patrick Johnson, their 7th round pick, who's being used in this new Sam Otto role, where they're playing a 4-3 under. And so if you're not really familiar with that, essentially you have 3 down linemen, an edge who stands up, 2 hook responsibility linebackers. You would call those normal off the ball linebackers. And then you have a guy far outside who is basically a 3-4 outside linebacker, who's called an Otto or an elephant or whatever you want to call it. Gus Bradley called it an Otto. Pete Carroll, I believe, calls it an elephant, whatever. Anyway, they're using a lot of guys that you're like, why are these guys competing for starting jobs? So it's like Joe Osman, Jannard Avery, and Patrick Johnson. But I got to tell you, as miserable as that second half was against the Steelers, the one guy who really stood out to me on defense was Patrick Johnson. He seemed to always know where to be. I liked him in space. He's a college defensive end, so he can rush the passer. But I was really impressed by his ability to stop the run and move around in space. And I think he's a guy that's kind of under the radar. I think you look at a guy like Elijah Riley, this second-year safety who was a practice squad player last year. He's made some plays as of late. And then you kind of look in the middle. I mean, Hassan Ridgeway has been injured in the second half of both of his seasons here, but yesterday he ran with the starters with Javon Hargrave sidelined and looked the part. So I think there are some guys, especially on defense, who are emerging. On offense, I mean, I think Jason Huntley is a guy who's dealing with an injury, but has had a pretty good camp to this point and could force the Eagles to keep 4 or 5 running backs.
Overall, you talked a lot about a lot of guys on defense there. What have you taken from Jonathan Gannon as the new defensive coordinator of this football team?
Well, I think his guys are really prepared, and I actually think Nick Rallis, the linebackers coach, deserves a lot of credit. The linebackers ran away with these joint practices. All 3 of the presumed starters got interceptions. Alex Singleton, TJ Edwards, Eric Wilson. They seem to be in the right spots at the right time. And then you kind of look at the corners. I thought Steven Nelson played pretty well. I thought Darius Slay played very well. Everybody else was awful, but they played well. And I think this defensive line is going to be dangerous. Like, they're dangerous. They're going to be very good. So I've been impressed. I think, look, they've shown out and shown up better than the 2 training camps that I've covered with Jim Schwartz. So it's a change of pace and it's a new system, but I think the defense is thriving.
What stuck out to you as far as the other side of the football with Nick Sirianni running his offense and Shane Steichen?
Well, I think a lot of stuff spread out. I've noticed that the coaching staff is extremely deliberate with everything that they do. There's a lot of excitement, a lot of high energy. Nick Sirianni is constantly on these wide receivers about their technique. I really like Jamal Singleton. I think he's a very vocal running backs coach. I think the running backs have all looked really good. I mean, obviously, you've got to see what they do in the preseason, and they had limited carries last week. But I've been impressed by what I've seen from them. I think Jordan Howard's running better. I think Boston Scott looks faster. Again, they're getting something out of Jason Huntley, which is something we didn't see last year. And look, I mean, I think the tight ends are playing very well.
Okay, great. That's good to hear. There's this story, I don't know if you heard about this, about the Eagles supposedly being interested in Deshaun Watson. Now the FBI is investigating Deshaun Watson. They're going to get involved in all this stuff now. Do you think all that talk is dead in the water? They're moving on from it. It's now going to be Jalen Hurts' team, especially with all the reports about how much guys like Jalen Hurts. Where do you see this quarterback position in general going for the Eagles going into the season?
Well, all these reports recently are really funny to me because we've been reporting, most of the local beat has been reporting that Jalen Hurts has been well-liked by teammates since even before he took over for Carson Wentz and really, really gained the locker room once he took over in Green Bay. He's a guy that has like this Nick Foles-like personality where he can adapt to basically anyone and relate to anyone. So these recent suggestions that he's suddenly winning over the locker room are kind of late. I mean, he's a guy who just walks into a room. As he calls himself, he's a coffee bean. He affects everybody around him. And so I think when you look at that and then you still see interest from the Eagles in Deshaun Watson, by the way, those are accurate. They are interested to some extent. It might mean that the Eagles want to lowball the Texans and see what they can get. It might be worth the gamble. But I think when you look at this legal situation, and look, we need to say it. He's accused of sexual misconduct by 22 masseuses. Like, you have to acknowledge that. That's a high number.
Right.
Innocent until proven guilty. But I don't know how you could not be concerned about those civil lawsuits. And then the 10 criminal complaints. And then now you're hearing about the FBI. And then you're hearing about specific investigations. Again, innocent until proven guilty. But there's still that, mystery. Nothing's been proven yet. And so, if you're a team trading for a player like this, you've got to be aware that there could be major consequences, major blowback. It's not just a PR blowback. There's a chance that, he could be convicted of something or indicted of something at the very least. And then you're dealing with that and you're the team that traded for him. I don't know. I spoke to Randy Mueller, who used to be the GM for the Saints and the Dolphins, and he told me he thinks it would be career suicide for a GM to trade for Deshaun Watson with these open cases. And I kind of agree. I don't think the risk is worth the reward. He's coming off the best year of his career, and the Texans were awful. And so I think, if you're the Eagles, you have this bushel of high picks. I'm going to say bushel because I like the word.
That's a great word. Plethora, a plethora maybe?
Plethora. Yeah, you could say plethora if you want to. I won't judge you. So you have these plethora of picks and you have this open-ended opportunity there where if Jalen Hurts plays very, very well, you could build around him with some premium assets. If you trade those assets for Deshaun Watson with open cases and, something opens up or there's another case that opens up after you trade for him, that's, egg on your face. It's not a great look as a GM, and it can really be damning for a franchise. If you look at what the Eagles could possibly do if Jalen Hurts plays well, or even if he bombs, they have more opportunities and flexibilities. And then if you're the Texans, why do you want to trade him at a loss? Now, people will say, well, maybe the situation gets worse. But here's the thing. If you trade him now, the value isn't going to be any different the stuff's not going to be as any more damning than it probably is right now unless he gets indicted. And at that point, you can't trade him anyway. But if you let things play out and he's cleared of a lot of this stuff, you could trade him at the trade deadline. You're still getting 2022 and 2023 picks. So from both sides, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to make a deal before the end of training camp or before week one. And again, we have to note there are 22 civil suits of sexual misconduct. There are 10 criminal complaints. That's a lot to take in, and it's a lot to dissect. And frankly, it's a lot to vet. And I don't know how you can vet things the way that the NFL and the teams want to do it with there being no criminal charges. There are the police reports or anything like that. So without going into too much detail, it's really, there's so much unknown. And to make a deal for a guy who's innocent until proven guilty, there's too much mystery.
In completely different news, are you coping with Florida hero Tim Tebow being released from the Jaguars? Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I don't really care.
I didn't think so.
Here's what I'll say. I don't understand people openly rooting for Tim Tebow. I also don't understand why you would give a 34-year-old player who's been out of the league for years a tryout at tight end.
I'm with you.
Listen, Tyree Jackson's 23. That's 11 years. Tim Tebow's older than I am. Look, Tim Tebow's a good guy as far as I know. I went to a college right near him. We were in college at the same time. I heard nothing but positive things. I obviously worked in Jacksonville, which is where he's from Ponte Vedra. He's from near the area. I heard nothing but great things. He's a hero in the area. That doesn't mean he should get a hall pass and get to play tight end. So there it is. Also, the excuse that Urban Meyer made that his experience on special teams was what got him cut. Well, you knew about his experience on special teams before you signed him. So what was the point there? It was not like he was going to learn how to block overnight or become a gunner. But I digress.
Mike Kaye, make sure you check him out. No Huddle Podcast, NJ.com. Read all his stuff following the Philadelphia Eagles. You're not an Eagles fan unless you're following Mike Kaye on Twitter as well. Mike, thank you so much. And I got to say, you gave me a fresh haircut this time around, man. I appreciate that.
Always for you. I have always come prim and proper for you. You know what I mean?
That is such a prim and proper show. Exactly.
Yeah, clearly. Talking about Tim Tebow.
The whole gambit.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, who's the WWE champion right now? I don't even know.
Bobby Lashley?
Is he really?
I don't know. I haven't watched the product in two months, but Ric Flair was trending today and not for the right reason. So,
oh God, I'll look at that later.
Do not look it up.
I will not look it up. I'm going to avoid that at all costs. Yeah. Mike Kaye, NJ.com, No Huddle Podcast. Make sure you follow him on Twitter, of course. Mike, thanks so much, brother, for joining us on the Rothman Orthopaedics guest line.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, did we find out if that was Ric Flair or not? I believe he denied the allegation. You'll look it up. Before I get into some of our reads here in our social media check-in brought to you by Steak and Maine at steakandmaine.com, I want to ask this question. I meant to throw this out the other day, and I need a little breakup here from Eagles and obviously being pissed off at the Phillies. So I told you guys last week I was at or this past weekend, I was in Pittsburgh for my cousin's wedding. Beautiful, had a great time. It was really nice and all that. Now, my cousin manages restaurants. And just as a real quick aside, I said to him the night before his wedding, we were all together, and I'm really close with these cousins. These guys are like brothers to me, and like a sister. My cousin Jess is like a sister to me. And I asked my cousin Doug, I said, Doug, what can I do for you, buddy? Is there anything I can do day before the wedding, morning of the wedding? I can run out, I can grab something. Anything you need, you come to me, right? Like my cousin Doug came to Italy for my wedding. I could go to Pittsburgh for his and do him a favor if he really needs one. You know what he said to me? Manages restaurants. You know what he said to me? He goes, Marc, I just opened this new restaurant called Margot in Pittsburgh. I know what an espresso fiend you are. Go have the espresso and tell me how it is. So I mosey on over there, me and the missus, right? Me and Toots go over there. I have the espresso. They set it down in front of me, and I take a sip, and it's terrible. Or maybe I should say it's not for me. There's like a sour type of espresso that, from what I've read, it's when the water goes through the grounds too fast and doesn't absorb all the delicious flavor, and it comes out like a sour taste. I believe they call it like a blonde espresso, like Starbucks advertised that for a while. Anyway, that type of espresso is not for me. I hate that espresso. So I ordered a cappuccino after that, and the cappuccino was awesome. They have like these great, delicious like breakfast toasts. I got like a salmon toast type of deal. It was delicious. My wife got a chicken salad toast thing. That was great. They have a nice bar set up, like a full bar. Like the place is amazing. A lot of people were there. Real hip place, man. This place was happening. So it's my cousin's wedding day, and he asked me to go try the espresso. So I avoid this conversation at all costs. I'm talking to his sister at the wedding, my cousin Jess. And she goes, hey, did you try Doug's new place? I said, yes, I did. And she goes, and I said, the cappuccino was amazing. The toast was fantastic. The atmosphere, the ambiance was great. She goes, well, how was the espresso? And I go, oh, God, no, not for me. No, thanks. Terrible. And she goes, oh, really? I said, yeah, not good. So just like that, right out of the gate, my cousin Doug comes outside, right? And he's like, hey, guys, what's going on? I'm like, hey, Doug, great party, great wedding. Everything's beautiful. And he says, Marc, you make it over to the restaurant. I said, you're damn right I did. I said, the cappuccino was great. The toast was phenomenal. And I wasn't going to say a gosh darn thing about the espresso. But my cousin Jess looks over at me and says, And he has and he had the espresso. She dimed me out right there. And my cousin Doug looks at me and goes, well, and I go, not for me. Not for me. Wasn't the kind that I like. It was that soury kind. And he goes, oh, yeah, you're this side of the family's Polish. It's not my Italian side. And he looks at me, he goes, oh, you're Italian. You like the motor oil. And I'm like, you're damn right I like the motor oil. Now, poor form to acknowledge, like, should I have lied to my cousin's face and said that I loved the espresso and everything was great? I told him everything else was great, but I told him the espresso was bad. At least not for me. Now, I did take into consideration this place that he's running is not an Italian place. It's more of like a French cuisine type of place, right? French vibe or Cajun vibe with the Margot, with the X at the end, that whole thing. Poor form or totally appropriate? Poor form or totally appropriate? Before I get to the comments, I just wanted to ask that question, and you guys can let me know whether or not that was poor form or not. Just you let me know. But I'll tell you what's not poor form. What'll actually get you back into great form, Rothman Orthopaedics. It's called a segue, folks. Rothman Orthopaedics, when you have orthopedic issues, you need a physician who eats, sleeps, breathes, drinks good espresso too. Orthopedics. You need an exceptionally specialized Rothman Orthopaedics physician. They not only specialize in orthopedics, but each of their physicians only focuses in on one area of the body, which means you can have the confidence to get past the pain and be what you were. Visit them in one of their 30-plus locations in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, including 4 orthopedic-only urgent cares. Learn more at RothmanOrtho.com. That's RothmanOrtho.com. And how about our friends at Steak and Maine and SteakandMaine.com? That's right, SteakandMaine.com. Check them out in the heart of Northeast Maryland for some fine dining. Whether you like to dine in their awesome bar, their patio, their great dining room, they have it all at Steak and Maine. You'll feel comfortable, relaxed, and ready to enjoy a great meal with delicious, fresh seafood, prime cut meats, and, of course, freshly prepared sushi. All that right at Steak and Maine. Voted #1 place for steaks in America by the Cooking Channel and the Travel Channel. I think they know a thing or two about steaks at those 2 channels. So make sure, this is what I always recommend for people. I see we got a couple of new people in the chat. Welcome aboard. Here's what I got for you. 2-pound tomahawk steak from Steak and Maine with a Cavada Cellars wine Pinot Noir. Oh, my God. Forget about it. It's phenomenal. You'll enjoy every bite of that steak. So make sure you check them out. Steak and Maine in the heart of Northeast Maryland. Voted #1 place for steaks in America by the Travel Channel and the Cooking Channel. SteakandMaine.com. Also, I hope you're following all that is to be told across Philadelphia sports at PHLSportsNation.com. That's PHLSportsNation.com, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience through blogs and social media as well. PHLSportsNation.com. All right, let's roll on into our social media check-in brought to you by Steak and Maine at SteakandMaine.com. Let's see what we have here. Dan is offended I didn't invite him to Margot. Seriously? Were you high? Never mind. Dan, I'm sorry I didn't invite you to Pittsburgh. Did you really want to go to Pittsburgh? I don't think you want to go to Pittsburgh. By the way, I will say Pittsburgh gets all honest. It gets better and better every time I go out there. It really does. I still hate their teams. Their teams are stupid and Crosby's a bitch. But everything else is great. What else do I have here? April saying, got to be honest, totally appropriate. Thank you, April. I appreciate that. You being on my side here. What else do we have here? All right, let's go to the top here with all the fine people checking in on the chat. Mally was leading off for us today. Mark, producer Jim, chat, morning. Good morning, Mally. Dan, hell yeah, let's talk some sports. So who you got winning the bowling championship this year? Dan, thank you very much. Who I always pick for the bowling championship, and that's Eleanor, my mom, to win her bowling championship. How about that? April, good morning. So 4 funky-ass runs in 2 games against the worst team in Major League Baseball. Gots to love Philly sports. Mally, it never gets old, does it? I love when you guys say hi to one another on here. It shows how much of a family we really are. April, Bryce is getting paid way too much money to not be flipping out. I agree. Hey, if it's not going to be Rhys Hoskins, and it's a weird thing in baseball, like there's always a pecking order, and I guess because this has been Rhys's team for the longest time, like him and Aaron Nola, that he's got to be the guy that's the leader. And I know that a lot of guys, as I mentioned earlier, look to Rhys Hoskins as the leader on this team. But if he's not in there, Bryce has got to be flipping a damn table over, or Joe Girardi does, or somebody's got to get their attention to shake things up just a little bit, I'd say. Mally, I smoke weed, and it ain't because of the Philly sports teams. That a guy. Dak NJ. What's up, Dak? Phillies are a 500 team. Why is anybody shocked? Because they're playing a sub 500 team. A very, very sub 500 team. A team that's like 20 wins worse than them. One of the worst teams in baseball. Yes, I'm shocked that they lost 2 or 3 to the damn Diamondbacks. Anyway, Dak, welcome to the chat. What else do we have? April, not shocked at all. Been saying all season they are perfectly mediocre. But this is even below mediocre. This is god-awful. Anyway. Dak is also saying division win, any other division beside the NL East, and the Phillies are packing for the offseason already. You're not wrong. You are not wrong. Dan, did you call Mike Kaye Michael, Marc? I heard he loves that. No, that is wow, Dan, you are the man. You are the man for that. That is a loyal listener and viewer right there. Mike is too cool for Michael. He's too chill. Sorry. Mike Kaye is too chill to be Michael. It's got nothing to do with the guy in New York. It's simply the fact that he is too chill to be Michael. He's just Mike. Gippers, do we have live call-ins? No. Not yet, at least, Gippers. Sorry. Grippers. There's an R in there. Grippers. What's up, buddy? Welcome aboard. No, we don't have live call-ins, at least not yet. Maybe in the future we'll, for lack of no pun intended, we'll dial that up. Maybe in the future. I'm not opposed to it. It's just a matter about getting it done. Because you know what? I would rather it would be easier to listen to people ask me if I smoke weed as opposed to just reading the comments ask me if I smoke weed. But thank you. Welcome aboard. Good to have you in here, Grippers. Marc have live calls. He might get banned from YouTube. I don't think so. I think they'd be down for that. Let's see what else we have. Mally, please stop with the Watson trade, please. I'm trying to stop with the Watson trade. Like, that's what, like, you get what I'm doing here? I'm trying to push all this aside. I'm trying to get to a point where we're no longer talking, like, it was completely dead in the water. And when we had Adam Kaplan on last week, he more or less said that ship has sailed. Wanted to get somebody else's take on that. And as I told you, as I was sitting on top of a horse in Colorado, I don't know how you drive home a point more than that. I told you, I don't want Deshaun Watson. I don't want the Eagles to trade for him. I want the Eagles to keep their possible 3 first-round picks and cash him in if Jalen Hurts doesn't turn out to be the guy. Speaking of which, I thought we had a question about Joe Flacco in here. Oh, do we start Flacco week 1? Does Flacco give us the best chance to win right now? That's from Grippers. I'm going to answer that question, as many of you have already in the chat. No. Say no to Joe Flacco. All right? No, thank you. This is Jalen Hurts' team, at least for this season. We'll see how this goes. I really do think there's something to be said for guys that are gamers, as Mike Kaye pointed out to us. Like, he's not the practice type of quarterback where he can throw to air, as Mike put it. But he's a guy that you can put out there in a game situation, and it'll make something happen. And one of the things I go back to is what Jason Avant told us months ago about Jalen Hurts. Even if Jalen Hurts doesn't know the play, he'll make the play. So if there's a situation like last year where he's still very much digesting the playbook and trying to learn the playbook, and he's confused in a particular play, doesn't know the proper read, the proper progression, he'll make a play. He is that good an athlete where he can make that play happen. And I would love to see him get that opportunity so far, or love to see him get that opportunity for the Eagles. Well, let's see. Where is Benny? Benny checked in the other day, and then he was gone again. He like smoke bomb ninja gone all of a sudden. Brian's in. What's up, Brian? Jerry, what's up, brother? Was it Grippers? No, thank you, Grippers. Oh, I appreciate that. You like the morning show I host. I appreciate that. A new morning show right here. We'll tune in more often. We'd love to have you, Grippers. Tony Bruno would not be opposed to having Tony Bruno on. A lot of people getting into the Sealski stuff. That's always good. Seeing if there's any more No, we're good right there. Thanks to everyone that checked in on our social media check-in brought to you by Steak and Maine and steakandmaine.com. Let's move into a couple of things. While we're talking about Jalen Hurts, let's move into our morning rush brought to you by Sky Motorcars and SkyMotorcars.com. This from our good friend Jason Avant. One of the hosts, of course, with Inside the Birds. He and Quentin Michael do a show, Q&A, appropriately titled. You got to play them until halftime. You have to, especially when you only have 3 preseason games. So we'll have 2 quarters of football and a series, and I'll be ready to play on opening day. That's a tough situation to put somebody in. That's Jason Avant on Jalen Hurts for his preseason playing time. Look, I know it's different for every single player, and I think it was Bruce Arians that even said the other day that he's not even going to play Tom Brady in game 2 in the preseason. And that's Tom Brady, sure. I think a guy that's going into a sophomore season, a guy that's going into his first year as the projected starter, I'd play him for at least a half. I'd have him go out there. Here's what, at very least, a full quarter. Like, hey, whatever happens in these 15 minutes, you're out there for it. Go have at it. I would play him a first half. Get him a little bit more, get his timing down more with these receivers. I'd love to see Devontae Smith out there, but I doubt the Eagles are going to do that. And if he's not ready to be out there, if there's any hesitation, if there's any worry about the knee, then, yeah, he's not playing. But I would put Jalen Hurts out there for at very least a full quarter. I don't think he goes out there full half. I'd love to see that too, but I think that'd even be pushing it for Nick Sirianni. All the experience you could get him before the actual season starts, I'm on board for it. And I love what Jason Avant's saying there. I'd be here for that. This was an interesting thing from yesterday. In case you haven't seen this, the Patriots have been practicing against the Titans. They kick off this weekend in preseason action. Mike Vrabel, of course, former teammate of Tom Brady. Mike Vrabel, who caught a touchdown pass from Tom Brady against the Eagles, even though he's a linebacker in a Super Bowl. I believe he caught 2 touchdowns in the Super Bowl, despite being a linebacker, not a receiver. But he did. Caught 2 Super Bowl touchdowns, one of them against the Eagles. He tweeted this out. Jack Brady, that's Jack Brady on the far right there. That's Tom Brady's son. Jack Brady talking with his favorite former Patriot, also pictured Tom Brady. Hilarious. Nice job there, Mike Vrabel. Appreciate that. Tom Brady's son, by the way, was playing the role of ball boy for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in training camp. 13 years old out there chasing down footballs for the good people on the Bucs and the Titans. Freddie Freeman, as I mentioned earlier, hit for the cycle for the second time in his career. The first Atlanta Brave to hit 2 cycles in his career. You know what he attributed to? Let's talk about caffeine again. He attributed to cappuccino. Apparently, he and his wife got cappuccinos delivered to the hotel, and his wife handed him a cappuccino saying, "Take this one. This one has a lot of hits in it." So sure enough, Freddie Freeman goes out there and hits for the cycle. Meanwhile, the Phillies can't string hits together for themselves and win a ball game. Sports are fun. Kevin Durant was in Philly yesterday. Well, at least Chester. He was in Chester watching his union. His union? Yeah, his union. Don't forget he's part owner of the Philadelphia Union. Get a 1-0 victory yesterday, so that was nice to see. Also, the greatest show possibly in sports right now, considering that it's only preseason in the NFL. Shohei Ohtani hit his 40th home run of the season last night. He also won the ball game. He's 8-1 on the season as a pitcher. He's pretty damn good. 40th home run for Shohei Ohtani last night. Miguel Cabrera is still, by the way, sitting on home run number 499 as he is approaching home run number 500. Also trying to get to 3,000 hits in his career. I remember when he was like 19 coming up with the Marlins. I think we all remember that. Well, a lot of us should, at least. And now we're talking about a guy who's going to be a 500 home run hitter. Not at all surprised by the way he started out his career. Pretty talented player. 2-time MVP, Triple Crown winner as well. First one since Carl Yastrzemski was able to do it. About in 1967 jumps to mind. Don't quote me. But anyway, pretty interesting. Pretty interesting night. Goes without saying. All right. We'll end as we began here. Phillies, please. Like at this point, like I'm almost at a point with the Phillies, which by the way, 90% of you who voted on our poll said that the Phillies are cooked. I'd almost rather the Phillies get swept. Like, I would rather Zach Wheeler pitch 8 innings of 2-run baseball and the Phillies lose 2-1. I would almost rather that happen just to try to hit rock bottom one more time before the Padres series, that is. And maybe that'll be what it takes to shake this team up and push them over the edge. Maybe. Like, that's the point I'm at. When I start rooting for losses, that's where I know that things have really, really hit the fan. And it feels like things have hit the fan right now. And look, you know what? What's that guy's? Pete Alonso was talking a couple of weeks ago about how, hey, Mets fans, hey, we all hit ruts, man. We all hit ruts. We're all cool. Hey, this is fine. Like, remember when Pete Alonso went into that, like, hippy-dippy stuff? He wasn't far off. The Braves have taken off. The Phillies have fallen by the wayside. The Mets can't put hits together. And did you see what Steve Cohen put out there about his team? Wow, professional hitters can't hit. This is amazing. I paraphrased his tweet, but that's more or less what he said. The owner of the team. Imagine John Middleton putting out tweets like that. Hey, I wouldn't be against it. At least somebody with the Mets in the front office is going, what the hell, guys? Love to see that from John Middleton. Wouldn't put it past him. Wouldn't put it past him. Eagles, Patriots tonight. I told you my prediction is that Jalen Hurts plays the first quarter. Maybe not all the first quarter. I'd love to see him play the full first quarter. I don't think it'll happen. I'd love for him to play the entire first half. I definitely doubt that happening. My prediction, like you're talking about predictions for a preseason game, want everyone to stay healthy, obviously. But I think you're going to see another good showing from this wide receiver core. I think you're going to see another good showing from this wide receiver core. Kez Watkins, obviously Greg Ward really has something to prove for himself. Jalen Reagor still has to continue to prove things to himself. He had that phenomenal catch. We showed it to you yesterday. He needs to continue to build on that. I think you're going to continue to see guys from this wide receiver core and tight end group really start to really produce tonight. And I think you're going to see another crisp game from Nick Sirianni. And of all the things that we looked at for the first game of the season, or for the first game of the preseason, the thing that jumped out to me the most was how clean a game it was for the Eagles, especially in that first half. Well, I shouldn't even say a game. How clean a first half it was when you had your 1s and 2s in there. 3s and 4s started to go by the wayside in that second half. But in that first half, it was a very crisp, clean game by both sides of the ball. Hopefully we'll see that again tonight. No mental errors, and we just see some smart football for the Phillies. Wow, Malley just went in there. Hurts 12 of 17 for 250 yards and 2 TDs. I could see people drafting him. I saw ESPN had him as the top quarterback for like a breakout season. So he might be a good guy to take in a later round of your fantasy draft. That's what I'm talking about. Fantasy draft. ESPN had him as number 1. It's like a breakout surprise season type guy. Jalen Hurts leading the quarterback spot. So let's root for that. Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure you hit subscribe on our YouTube page. Make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts as well. My name is Marc Farzy. I'll be back with you guys tomorrow morning after, hopefully an Eagles preseason win, whatever. But more importantly, a clean game, a healthy game. Everyone gets out healthy. And hopefully another good performance from Jalen Hurts. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Jim Hyden produced the program. This is a Buzz Sports and Entertainment production. Have a great day, everybody. From the Steven Singer Studios, I'm Marc Farzy. Take it easy.